Hello, folks. Just when you think there's no hope for South Africa, reason prevails at the last moment once again. The African National Congress has withdrawn its illegitimate state of disaster related to the Eskom crisis. Now, make no mistake, there is a state of disaster. There's two of them, actually. One is the electricity crisis, entirely generated by foolish policies from the African National Congress, corruption, ineptitude, patronage, and a host of other preventable problems. It's not a question whether South Africa has sufficient energy reserves or the intellectual capacity, human capital to deliver electricity to all of its 60 million residents reliably, safely, and affordably. It does. It chooses not to do that through a variety of reasons. Well, they implied a state of disaster, trying to follow up on their 3-year state of disaster over the spicy cough. On the 9th of February, President Ramaphosa announced a state of disaster with dramatic phrasing, calling the power crisis an existential threat to our economy and social fabric. And he said that we must not delay in taking action. Okay, well, that was February 9th. That was almost 2 months ago. What did they do? So what have they done? Well, we'll talk about that in just a moment in that nearly 2 months of a state of disaster. But today, the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Thembi Nadi-Beng, whom I prefer to call the Minister of Uncooperative Governance and Irrational Affairs, published a gazette just before noon that said the state of disaster had been terminated. Now, why was it terminated? Well, because they were taken to court and it wasn't legitimate. Once again, the African National Congress usurped power from the people, violating the Constitution with its unlawful declaration of a state of disaster. And rather than face another court loss, they withdrew it. The organization Undoing Tax Abuse, or UDA, went to the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria with this case. Solidarity, the labor union, also filed against the government. Now the government has withdrawn this voluntarily. In addition, the state attorney has offered to pay UDA's wasted court cost. Wow. So the taxpayer is going to pay for this stupidity once again. Back in February, the Minister of Uncooperative Governance and Irrational Affairs at that time, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, the least popular person in Addis Ababa, she issued directions on how to implement the state of disaster declaration, basically telling people what should have been done since this crisis first reared its ugly head back in 2008. Save electricity. Try to reduce and shorten load shedding and help everyone affected to not be so badly affected by, among other things, providing uninterrupted power supplies to hospitals and water treatment plants. Well, that's not exactly a plan, and that's not how you respond to a state of disaster. But this is a victory of sorts for South African civil society. It comes on the heels of earlier in the day, Finance Minister Enoch Gondwana told members of Parliament that he had decided to withdraw the exemption for Eskom from the Public Finance Management Act for now. That's a bit disturbing. And to have further consultation with the Auditor General and Eskom's auditors. Well, what's that about? Well, Eskom was exempted from reporting requirements for irregular and inappropriate expenditures. Why? Because the government is covering up the corruption and fraud and nepotism. And they didn't want to expose it. So they were using a loophole to hide it from the public. Well, this is a public enterprise. Every rand spent by Eskom should be subject to public purview. There is no national security issue here about how the money's spent. There is no justification whatsoever for the ANC, the African National Congress, to try to cover up what's happening at Eskom. The public is welcome to that information. So today, two major victories for South African civil society, and all prompted by the actions of private civil actors like UDA and Solidarity, and the public pressure and the response from an outraged public when they became aware of the fact that Eskom was going to be able to cover up these expenditures. Congratulations, South African civil society. These are the sort of victories you need on an almost weekly basis to beat back this corrupt kleptocracy that runs South Africa. And you need to expose them to the public. And for the fourth estate, here's a message to you. You have a moral responsibility to report, not pontificate. Report, not pontificate. Report, not propagandize, which is what the fourth estate largely does in South Africa. Report this factual information and be honest about it. And stop demonizing. Just yesterday, another article from Propaganda 24, affectionately known as News 24 by their own description, another article from them lamenting the lack of black faces in the Democratic Alliance. I've yet to see a single article from the News 24 outlet ever questioning why there are no white faces in the ANC any longer, except for Barbara Creasy. That's about it. Where did all the white South Africans, all the liberals who were part of the ANC go? Well, they've either been chased away or they left voluntarily for whatever reason. But that's never an issue for the ANC, which is overwhelmingly black now and overwhelmingly Zulu and Xhosa, not the rest of South Africa. Why doesn't News 24 ask that question? But let's not get into that. Let's just talk about today's victory for South African citizens. The bogus state of disaster is ended. And this pushback will make it difficult, if not near impossible, for the ANC to once again usurp the Constitution, undermine the rule of law with an unelected, unaccountable, capricious body like the National Coronavirus Command Council. Very Stalin-esque sounding body. So congratulations, South African society, for that victory and for Enoch Gondwana pulling back. Do not lose your focus. Stay focused on Enoch Gondwana and what's going on at ESCOM, because he said for now he's going to try to bring it back. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your support for the program. And we'll catch you next time right here. Cheers.